All right. Ready? This is the last. We're rolling after this one, no matter what.
We'll roll it.
All right.
Roll me into my grave.
Oh, here we go. I'm not going to be able to compose myself here. All right. Ready? Are you looking away, DJ, because you can't handle it?
I'm just trying to not breathe.
Oh boy, this is going to be an interesting one.
We're off to a great start. Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. This is episode 7. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with DJ Mandolini.
Hey, that's me.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey everybody.
And how's everybody doing? Yet again. Just burned. Anyways, I guess I'm doing pretty good, guys. I hope you're doing well as well.
I'm doing pretty well as well.
Well, anyways, now after a nice triple whammy hat trick rough start here, we're gonna roll into let's just roll right into the game of the week this week. Last week we decided we were gonna talk about Blossom Tales: The Sleeping King. This is a top-down. I mean, let's just not beat around the bush here. It's a top-down Zelda style action adventure RPG. It's definitely got its own little bit of its own, not its own style per se, but it's got its own charm.
Yeah.
And it's got some unique ideas to it for sure. It's not just a straight up Zelda clone.
Definitely not.
Even though it has very many similar elements. But yeah, Randy, what do you think? How far along have you gotten in the game so far?
About 6.5 hours, which seemingly is about halfway through. It looks like there's 4 main dungeons, and I completed the second one, but I've definitely spent a ton of time just kind of in the overworld map, just finding little secrets and digging up holes to see what's underneath, and grabbing extra feathers and stuff, because you get 20 of this type of feather, and then you can go back and exchange for items or coins that you can use to buy items. So I'm a sucker for that in these type of games anyway. I mean, that's how I got up to like 160 hours in Breath of the Wild too, is because I'll just mess around in the overworld for hours, because I just enjoy that exploration aspect, which I think this game does pretty well. There's aspects of it that are a little bit more linear, which I also appreciate. Like, I want to keep this game going. Okay, this is the way. Go northwest to this next dungeon. That's cool. But otherwise, the world's relatively open with the items you get from pretty early on, like the bombs, where you can kind of do whatever you want, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I really like how the bombs and the arrows and your items and stuff, you don't have a limited use or a limited number of them. It's all tied to like your magic meter or whatever you want to call it.
I also love that. That's a huge benefit, I think, compared to having some set amount where like you feel awkward about, oh, I've only got 10 bombs, thinking back to like the original Legend of Zelda or something.
Yeah, like do I blow up every rock on this screen? Right. I only have a couple left. I need them for the dungeons. Right. Or I might need them for the boss, or I might need, this is like, no matter what, you're never gonna put yourself in a corner,
right?
Because of using all your items.
You need those for those.
I really like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they ever changed that with Link Between Worlds. It seemed familiar, but I didn't go back and check. But I think Link Between Worlds also did this, so I guess it's more based off that style.
Okay, but I believe this came out before Link Between Worlds. I could be wrong, but this game's been out for a little while.
They knew what Link Between Worlds was going to be.
This game came out at the end of 2017, at least on Switch, and I think in March on PC. It came out on Steam first, but it seems like from the developer's perspective, the Switch version is more kind of lead platform and has done quite well for them comparatively.
Nice.
And that's what I think all of us are playing on too.
Yeah. So we're definitely all playing this on the Switch. And one of the things that I really like about this game is the presentation. And one of the things that sets it apart, not the graphical presentation per se, but like the story starts out as like your 2 young kids. I don't know if they're twins or if they're just brother and sister, but they're their grandfather's telling them a story. And, you even get to kind of dictate the story. The brother and sister will argue at times, like, is it pirates that attack or goblins?
Yeah.
I forget what I might be mixing up different games here, but is it golems or is it archers or is it, and they argue back and forth, and then you get you get to pick, and the grandpa's like, oh, only one of you's right. So I really like that, especially when you reboot up a save game and the grandfather gives you like a quick recap of what you were doing last, or like, you're on your way to the boiling caverns, and it gives like kind of a recap of the story, almost like he's giving you a recap, like, hey, we're going down for bed the next night, and like now I'm giving you a recap of where we left off. It's a nice touch that, at least again presentation wise, sets it apart from the Zelda franchise and any other of these top down 2D. I almost wish they took that concept a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean it's both charming and useful to gameplay.
Yeah.
With the Zelda games, they don't do anything to clue you in on where you left off. So if maybe you've gone like a week or two between when you've played your last game, it could be hard to get up to speed. But with this, it's just like, okay, I know where to go. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and not only that, and then on top of that, it has like here's the yellow rectangle around the area on the map that you need to get to.
Right.
Yeah, I think some older Zeldas had that too, but again, just the charm of the grandfather and the kids. Like, it's, I don't know, just dripping with charm.
Yeah, it's well written. It's like well written charm. Sometimes that can be like, they can cross the line of like cheese, and into that territory of like, this is a little, you're laying it on a little thick, the ham is a little too present.
But like, I feel like they're even self-aware about that. Like,
it's cheeky in a good way. It's not, I don't know. It's, some games try too hard and this game's not. It's got a nice balance. It's
even
really
in the intro,
done.
they're definitely well aware that, we made a Zelda clone, so we're going to have those jokes right on the front side, but it's more than that. And here it is.
That like completely changed my attitude towards it going in, because I remember when we were watching the trailer and I was just like, oh, this is Zelda, like, who do they think they are?
Mm-hmm.
And then just once they're very self-aware and they admit that they're doing it, it's just like, okay, I can get down with this.
Right.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I really liked in again, not to, it's impossible not to keep comparing it to Zelda games, but like for me, and I find it interesting because I didn't really explore around the overworld at all. I didn't even really realize that there was much there to do, to be honest. Like, I was just following the paths and just moving along. And I've only put about 3 hours in, but I've beaten the first 2 dungeons as well, Randy. And I just went up, like, just got to like the snowy region.
Yeah, we're about at the same place, I think.
Okay, so you've just done a little more exploring than me, I guess.
I'm up to 11 hearts already, man.
Like, I'm at 5, and I've actually never found a place that I can even spend money at. I've never.
Oh, kidding me?
I was like, what? I was like, was thinking, like,
are you speeding?
Can you get money in this game? Like, what's the point of this money? I don't understand the point of this money. So,
there's plenty of points for the money.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because, like,
okay,
I beat the game. Around 10-ish hours, give or take. But yeah, it's less time than your average 2D Zelda game, I'd say.
Yeah, they typically are 20, 30 plus.
Right. But like, they still, I feel like, are cramming in a decent amount of content. Like, you still have to get to 20 hearts, like you would in a regular Zelda game. So I feel like there have to be lots more pieces available throughout the world. So I'm very surprised you haven't been running into stuff. Like, it's like you're actively avoiding the exploration.
I didn't feel like I was. Like, I just started thinking like, oh, I guess this game's a little like, kind of like, I just played Gato Roboto a few weeks ago. I was like, maybe this is just more like a totally condensed, like, it's all about these 4 or 5 dungeons, and that's kind of the heart of the game, and that's it. So I just kind of assumed that was all there was.
By the time I left the castle at the beginning, I had already gotten an extra, like, full heart. Like,
I did too, yeah.
Damn, I just stormed out of there like, let's go. But this is not. I mean, apparently I missed something, and I'm not like just. Sometimes I am prone to just kind of. I know we talked about Swords of Ditto last week or 2 weeks ago, but we talked about kind of breezing through some of that, but like this, I was sitting down by myself. Like I was committed. Like I was reading all the text. I wasn't skipping through stuff. So I don't know how I kind of missed that aspect of it. Cause like, it feels like some of the even areas on the map are really small, like when you move from square to square on the map, it's like you enter you'll enter from the top and get to the bottom pretty quickly. So I just was like, I guess there's not much on these. It's just kind of an illusion of a larger map by making you move from screen to screen. But again, I've been having fun. I don't mean this as any kind of slight. I've been really liking this game. And what I was going to say, and maybe this is because I haven't leveled up or bought any upgrades or anything, but I was going to say that I actually find this game, compared to other 2D Zelda games, I'm enjoying myself more than I do, or more than I have in a long time with most 2D Zelda games, Yeah. I think the combat's a little more fluid and interesting, and you have a little, you can do the spin attack. You can also, while you're doing the spin attack, you can press attack again and do like kind of like a jump attack.
Yeah.
To like kind of like leash or lash out at enemies.
I just recently really put that together. Like they told me about it earlier, but I'd never really used it. And I'm like, oh, this is actually really useful.
Yeah, it's great. And even just for like getting away from enemies, sometimes, it's nice. And the movement is just pretty fluid. It's a little bit slippery, but it feels good.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. You just like, you can swap between your items. I like we mentioned, you don't have a limited number of them, so you're willing to you're a little more free to experiment.
Yeah,
with a huge the different abilities you have, and I also think the puzzles are really cleverly designed, and they require some agility and also some foresight or some brain power of some kind, It's
those floor
really
puzzles. I actually really liked those, and I'm not normally a huge person for those, but I'm like, man, I love these. They clicked for me, and I liked when I approached those.
Are you getting the Goof Troop vibes from this game as well, Randy? You've played that as well, DJ? For Super Nintendo, Goof Troop?
I've watched some gameplay.
I could see that.
I was getting some vibes with
the kicking the blocks around.
Totally.
Or the pushing them. And I was like, oh, this is so Goof Troop. If this was co-op, just get... Goof Troop, by the way, if you've not played for the Super Nintendo from Capcom, is just a fantastic...
super underrated Super Nintendo
co-op game as well. So it's great single player as well, but co-op is really fun.
Totally. The way you should play that game, I think.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I've definitely it's like a mix of that and and Zelda, which obviously that game has a lot of Zelda DNA in it as well.
Yeah.
So
good comparison on those puzzle areas though with the floor. I love those puzzles.
Yeah, they're really clever, and they allow for multiple solutions. Like you can you can kind of finesse your way out of a predicament a little bit, not if you totally screw yourself, but it's easy to just start over.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I've been really enjoying this game, and like I said, I really like the presentation. I do wish they had some options for the button layout, and like maybe more options to like toggle through weapons instead of having to pause. It felt a little dated in that regard to have to go into the menu to swap out your items, but you're usually able to put the two that you kind of need in the two slots for, whatever boss you're fighting or for whatever area you're in. You can, put the bombs in the bow and arrow and you're good.
Yep.
But
yeah, I mean, it just felt like something they didn't need to copy from Zelda, and they did anyway. But, it's not terrible. Like you said, it's pretty easy to work around.
Yeah, it's just like
would have been a nice touch to be able to be like, I want to be able to cycle through these items when I hit like the shoulder button.
Or at least dedicate a button to like potions or something. Like you had to equip the potion, then drink one, and then de-equip it. Like it just a little bit of a hassle, and not a huge deal or anything, but it just would streamline the experience just a little bit more. To add even just a button to even just adding that potion button, and even if everything else you still had to pause, that would help a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there's different, I guess another small, gripe is, I do like that they have like the different portal pads that you can, teleport or, fast travel between different areas of the map, but I wish it had more than just the names of the areas, it's just like a list of
something I ran into too.
Yeah, it'd be
Yep.
nice to see a little cursor point on the map. I know
Yes.
it's tough because some of the locations are directly on the overworld map, but then some of them are actually within the dungeons
Right.
Themselves. So I guess maybe it's a little tough to do, but they could have at least just put the cursors over the dungeon or something like that. Or
Yeah, they could have been a little bit more clear, or like put an icon next to certain options to say like this is overworld in this general area or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or within this square tile on the map or something. Because it was just sometimes I'm just like, once you get a little further, you're like, okay, where was that again?
Totally.
There's not as much to remember as like in a Zelda game, but there's still enough,
Yeah,
I do really appreciate that they included travel paths to different locations within a dungeon.
Yeah, like the midway point.
Yeah.
There's like an entrance, midway point, and then the right before the boss.
Yeah, because there are collectibles that are in the dungeons that you would want to go back to scour for.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Because you get that bomb after the first dungeon, and there's definitely places where you can bomb the cracks in walls to get stuff, things of that nature.
And the dungeons are pretty big, which is nice too. I think they've been like really cleverly laid out and designed, and just a really good use of the relatively simplistic mechanics in the game. They just make a good use of that.
Yeah, they're big, but they're not too big. Like,
Right.
I feel like they're approaching the point where it's just like, okay, like let's move on. Like, I think they hit the sweet spot.
I did too. Yeah, I thought it was a good flow there, and I like the boss battles generally too.
I was
and
just
I thought
gonna
it was
say,
cool.
yeah.
It invokes like kind of a bullet hell pattern thing going on, which is definitely not usual for Zelda games. So they
Yeah, it
definitely
gets a
had
little
their own
more
twist
hectic.
there.
Yeah, it gets a little more hectic running around during the boss battles instead of just memorizing the pattern. I mean, It is that as well, but it is you're running around while you're memorizing the pattern. You can't just stand there in the background and wait it out. So that's it's definitely I feel a little more active. I'm playing a little more, again, like I mentioned, like the fluidity of the movement.
Yeah.
You're not like kind of on a grid, even though Zelda, you can move diagonally and stuff, but it feels nice to move around in this game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying my time, and I'm looking forward to playing some more.
I think I'm kind of wishing I approached it more like you did, like a less exploratory route, only because I found the combat for me to almost become mindless to a certain extent, because I felt like I was just stacked with health at a point, and I didn't feel like I needed to pay as much attention to what I was doing, and especially because I feel like they also dish out hearts and potions pretty frequently.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was ever really in danger. Like, even, the boss battles, I'd say, some of them I would use a potion on, and like I had plenty of potions, and I don't know. I guess, yeah, maybe not stacking myself up so much would have been a more engaging experience.
I could see that. At the beginning, it's a little bit more difficult, but yeah, over time, that becomes less of the case. But I suppose that's kind of the same conceit that a lot of the other, at least 2D Zeldas have too, where over a while, once you get enough hearts, you can kind of breeze past most of the usual enemies.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because that's one of the things that's been keeping me engaged this whole time, is like I'm having a challenge at every corner, like even sometimes screens of enemies are like, oh man, that's it's gonna be a rough, plowing through these guys. So
Right.
that's it. Is there, so you completed it, right, DJ?
Yes.
Is there any kind of like new game plus or anything like that? I know a lot of these games at the end have some kind of, you beat the game, now there's a extra hard mode for your reward.
Geez, I don't think they presented anything like that. I mean, you can keep playing and keep going after all the collectibles and stuff.
Yeah.
Like the grandpa will be like, oh, but there was so much more for Lily to do and people to help. And I think, there's new items that you can use once you beat the game. But in terms of like a hard mode, I didn't, maybe I missed it, but I don't recall that being a thing.
Defeating the evil wizard Crocus, that was your reward. Which my man Crocus got a raw deal. They started talking shit about him right at the get before he did anything. Man.
Well, I think it's Crocus. I go.
No,
That's how I read it.
Crocus is better.
Crocus.
Than
Crocus. You say Crocus. I say Crocus. But there's how do you guys feel about the graphics or like the pixel art of this game? I'm a little torn. I like it overall, I think, but there's something about it has like this weird like 3D-ish effect or something. There's something going on that like gives it this weird depth, like there's some kind of disconnect at times that I have with like if something's like smoking, it's like those like kind of almost like, I guess it's 2D, so it's not a voxel, but it's like
right.
like large pixels. Just I don't know. There's something weird. There's like a secondary layer that's just a little. It's not necessarily bad. They're kind of juxtaposed to me. Did you guys have any thoughts on that, or notice that, or thoughts on the visuals, or anything in general?
I mean, I feel like for me, the only thing I noticed was at the beginning with the king. Yeah, I thought like, is that a person? But that could just be my.
He did look kind of weird. He was just all like his face. Everything was just all smushed.
Yeah.
Hey, he was sleeping. Give him a break.
Oh, my bad.
He is the sleeping king.
Yeah.
I don't think I noticed anything unclear aside from that, though. I like the art.
I do too.
I
mean, that's what caught my eye on the game originally. So I don't not like it. I like it. It's nice and colorful, and it's got a nice style, but it's like a little blocky or something. There's something I didn't like as much as whatever caught my eye originally. It didn't like it quite as much as I thought I would.
To me, it's kind of perking some of that like TurboGrafx PC Engine nostalgia with the presentation of this one. Just visually and audio wise, I was like, ooh, this is just like hitting my like nostalgia buttons here for that platform. For whatever reason, just a lot of similarities that way. So I enjoy it for that. I think it's another factor that's kind of kept me motivated to keep playing this one.
Yeah, sorry. Taking a swig of water there.
No worries.
And I can't carry the conversation myself.
The other piece I wanted to throw out there, though, that I thought was really cool, like being a retro style game, it's very much like in the retro mold. It's really cool that it's a female protagonist in Lily. Like that's really not the case historically. If you look at games of the similar mold and what they were going for vintage wise, like back in the retro days, every protagonist was male besides Samus, and even then you didn't find out until the end of the game. So I still think that's kind of novel. I mean, it's less so in the modern age where we get a lot more female heroes, but in this retro style game, I feel like we still don't see it that often. So I thought it was pretty cool, especially for a game that's a little bit, I'd say, more difficult on average in some of the scenarios.
Yeah. And again, like you said, in like the typical, this is like the quintessential the hero saves the princess game. So,
right. Exactly.
It's nice to kind of, I don't know who you're even trying to, I guess, you're trying to rescue the king, I guess.
Girl saves the king.
Gotta wake up the king.
Right. Defeat Crocus, my man.
Crocus. Get it through your skull, Randy. It's Crocus.
Must have missed that pronunciation help. And
you didn't hear the voice acting? Yeah, thankfully no voice acting in this game. Not that that's always a bad thing, but
that would have been even more PC Engine nostalgia if they would have had some horrible voiceover. The evil wizard Crocus.
He's like a lion or something, right? He looks pretty cool, I think.
He does.
Juxtaposed to the king, looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that's all I had to say about Blossom Tales. Anything else on your guys' end?
I guess I was curious. I mentioned this to you earlier. If if you think that this game would be received differently, and I don't mean like in terms of how many people would have been aware of it, but I mean like, do you think people's opinion of this game would be different if it was presented as one of the Zelda games? Like this is Zelda, King of the Sleep.
Or
you know
Zelda
what I mean?
Like the protagonist, yeah. I mean,
I guess I'm wondering, like, keep like all the the gameplay parts the same.
Mm-hmm.
Would would this be held in as high regard as Zelda games are? Like, or I guess what I'm saying is, do you think, even though these games are very similar, Zelda games are held in higher regard because they're Zelda?
Right. Yeah, I could see it being treated like those Capcom developed Game Boy Color Zeldas. It'd probably be on that level since it's developed by technically a non-Nintendo developer, like Oracle of Ages and Seasons. It'd probably be in that bucket, but it'd have its own hardcore fans type of thing.
Right. I guess I don't know. I guess I'm coming at this with maybe unpopular perspective. I like Zelda games. I don't love them though, and I've grown to think that they're maybe a little overrated.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan either. I mean, I enjoy Zelda games, but I don't like live and die for them. I play them. I like them. I usually don't finish them. I finished a handful of them, but I have a good time, but I usually end up burning out before they're over.
Yeah.
And knowing that this one is something like 10, Blossom Tales is something like 10 hours or so at max, at least apparently the way I'm playing, I have 5. But it's knowing that it's a little more bite-sized.
I feel like
that's more my style.
I feel like it's the length that they should all be, in my opinion, because like they have the puzzle parts, they have the combat parts. I don't know if like there are ever many like super sweet spots.
I guess you gotta take into consideration that at least the original Zelda and like Link to the Past, like at the time on NES or Super Nintendo, like getting an adventure that lasted that long and that you were like saving up your allowance, at least for someone my age, at least you're saving up your allowance to get that one game that's the only game you're gonna have for a while. And like it was a big deal to like have this, know that you were gonna get this Zelda game that like I'm gonna get a lot of mileage out of this game, and there's tons of secrets, and I'm never gonna finish it, essentially.
Right.
But I know what you mean in today's day and age when there's so many games in any type of game you want to play, you can find 100 or dozens of other games in that style. So which one do you pick? I kind of lost where I was going with that, but
well, we lost everything.
I mean, that was the main point I wanted to make, was just that like the Zelda games, I enjoy them, but they don't do, I don't need to play them. I don't.
This one really scratched the itch for me, though. I don't know, like, and I don't know that I've ever. I think that like the original Legend of Zelda is the only 2D one that I've ever seen to completion. And really? I definitely will see this game to completion, so that's really saying something.
Yeah, I've never finished a 2D Zelda game either.
Yeah, I've definitely finished, a lot of the 3D ones, Breath of the Wild, Wind Waker, etc. But yeah.
I've only finished Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time. I think they're the only 2 I've ever done.
Yeah, same on Ocarina too.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't have any strong opinions one way or the other on this game versus the Zelda. I mean, obviously it would get more. I don't even think there's much perception on this game at all. I think it's just nobody even knows that it exists.
Yeah. Which is a shame because it's really well crafted, I think.
Yeah, like I said, I'm more sucked into this than I am in most of the 2D Zelda games I've ever played.
Totally.
So, from my perspective, I'm not saying it's better or worse necessarily, but I'm enjoying myself more than I typically do when I play a 2D Zelda game.
I am saying it's better.
Yeah, I'd be willing to. Yeah, I think that's a valid argument.
It's Absolutely. Just more. I find myself more engaged again. Like the puzzles are like, because it's like a little bit more. But again, not bite size, because it is 10 hours is not a short game by any means. That's longer than Uncharted. Like those games take me 8 to 10 hours to play through. So like, right. It's not a short adventure by any means. But like they're just jam packing like, everything into a third of the time that it takes to play through a Zelda game. Yeah. So, but there was something to be said about like exploring those vast open overworlds and stuff. This game, I just think, kind of minimizes some of that.
Yeah, the fluff's not there. It's just well crafted.
It's because nowadays it's not. I mean, there is stuff like Breath of the Wild, so it's not impressive to just have a huge 2D overworld overhead top down map. That was impressive when Link to the Past came out, but it's not anymore. So I think you have to look for other ways to impress people, not just by saying, look at this huge map and holy shit, there's a Dark World version of that huge map. So there's like 2 of it. You know what I mean? That was like, at the time, that was a big deal. But now that's not going to be impressive. That's not a technical feat anymore.
Right. And we're not 8 years old with a total of 4 video games at our disposal. So like time is, valuable. So yeah, to have a condensed, well-developed experience that lasts no more than 10-ish hours is awesome.
Yeah.
It's so appreciated.
Yeah, it really is.
Doesn't overstay its welcome.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I can ask from most games. Because again, I'm terrible at finishing them, so I love when a game is just like, oh, I'm done. Yep. Oh, sweet. Or when I can taste the end, and I haven't put 20 hours in, and I'm still like, where am I? Close? Am I somewhere? So, anyways, I guess we can move on from Blossom Tales. Yeah. Anything else anybody wanted to add?
It's recommended. I'm going to see it.
Yeah, definitely recommended. So, moving on from Blossom Tales, DJ and I just real quick follow up from last week, right? Or 2 weeks ago?
Last week.
Last week. We talked a little bit about the Swords of Ditto, Mormo's Curse, which is another kind of top-down Zelda style, hack and slash action adventure. But it's got some roguelike elements. And one of the things we forgot to mention last week was every time you enter a dungeon, it has, I think, 4 different qualifiers that will be enemies are more advanced or have more abilities, or your projectiles do more damage or less damage, or your
you'll get double XP or less XP.
Yeah, or your toys, which are like your items, use less toy power, or they use more toy power, or when you do a dodge roll, it does damage, or when you do a dodge roll, you lose coins or toy power. There's all kinds of different qualifiers. Yeah. But that's definitely one of the core elements, especially because this game has those roguelike elements where the map gets shuffled around. And I did read a little more, and I think I mentioned last week, the game, originally came out being strictly permadeath, I believe. And now they added in like a normal mode, but the more I played a little more this week and have found that I think the permadeath or the hero mode, they call it, is still the way to go. I know they added in the normal mode is kind of the default, but I found that it's still more interesting to, like, every time you die, you move ahead 100 years in the future, and Mormo, the evil witch, comes back and wreaks havoc on the land, and things get a little more fucked up, and you just come back. And I don't know, I just like the loop of, like, it shuffles around the layout of the overworld. Whereas in the other mode, you just die. You lose some of your money and some of your items and stuff, but you get to keep some things, and everything stays laid out the same.
So the overworld stays the same in that scenario.
Correct. Yeah. Mode. Correct. Okay. And I think if you die when you're facing Mormo, there are more dire consequences. I didn't get that far, but I found myself just finding, like, it's just more interesting, at least for what I'm looking for in this game. I get, everybody's different, but for me, I'm just finding myself, I want to dive in and just kind of tackle this world from scratch each time. Like, each time I'm the new hero, right, going to save the world, and I have one chance to do it, and if I don't do it, I got to try again. And again, maybe that's just because I've become more accustomed to playing these roguelike style games that I almost want that. Right. Which is something that I a lot of times hated about old games. Like, oh, I wish I had more continues, or I wish I could, I wish I didn't have to start over every time, or, but if I find myself gravitating towards that, I don't know how you feel about that at all, DJ, but.
I mean, I feel like the permadeath mode works better thematically, you know, the story being based around, like, this Sword of Ditto keep being resurrected every 100 years. Like, that doesn't really happen if you're on regular mode and you're just bringing back the same character. Like, it is cool, being a whole different character, going back to this world and seeing how, what is different now that 100 years have passed, more havoc has been wrought. I don't know.
It's got to be a lot more
interesting experience.
Too.
Yeah. You find yourself, like, the food items you find are, like, few and far between. And we just found that, like, we went to the shop and bought a bunch of stuff before we we were trying to loot this final like dungeon basically to see if we could level up or get any more items or anything before we went back to face Mormo.
Yeah.
And we just, we bought all the items up in the town, and then we went back to the town. We're like, okay, we used them all up while we were in the dungeon. And I'm like, okay, let's go get some more food. And we went back to town. It's like, oh shit, it's all gone. Yeah. So those were like one-time deal purchases, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Even though you can exploit it. I feel like you can farm a little, like just leave the screen, come back, kill the enemies, and if there's like a screen with a bunch of grass or pots and barrels and stuff, you can exploit it a little bit and still farm for stuff. But
we're also on a time limit technically right now, so farming is limited.
Yeah, once you get powerful enough, it activates like a 24-hour timer that like, okay, you have 24 more hours to, not in real time obviously, but you have 24 hours in game time to like level up or do whatever else you need to do to prepare for this battle. So
right.
So yeah, nothing really much else to add beyond what, we already talked quite a bit about it last week, or at least a little bit. But just especially since we forgot to mention that randomized dungeon element, it definitely adds to the fact. And there was a cool dungeon we played a little earlier. Had some obtuse elements that took us a second to figure out, but we got like a golf club item that you're like hitting a golf ball around the rooms to like into different holes or to touch different panels. So some pretty unique ideas, even though the dungeons have been, I would say, a weaker part of the game. The game really is cashing in on a lot of charm.
Sure. More
than anything, the art style, the music, it's got that Adventure Time kind of vibe to it and quirky characters. But Puku, we mentioned him last week, just the most annoying. He's like your little helper, sidekick, beetle. He just pops up every like, oh, I'm getting kind of sucked into this game. Oh, here comes Puku to interrupt this boss battle. It's so annoying. If you could turn that feature off,
it's how not to do charm.
Yeah, exactly. Just overdoing it big time. So that's definitely a detriment to the. I would gripe about Puku, but other than that, I would say I'm having a good time with this game, both single player and multiplayer.
I've only been having a good time multiplayer because that's all I've played with you.
There you go.
Yeah. But since DJ and I talked a little about that, Randall, what else have you been playing this week?
I've been playing some Puyo Puyo Champions, which has only recently come out May of this year, 2019. Playing that on Switch. But it was on sale already. It was $5 when it's usually 10. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to grab this. I've already got Puyo Puyo Tetris, but I own Puyo Puyo Tetris physically. And there's a whole meta thing around, well, that's on this cartridge and I have to switch out the cartridge that's already in the Switch. And that's a whole thing. So if I got the download, it's already on the system, right? That's even easier to get into. So you have to buy it for $5, right?
I did the same exact thing. So I can just fire it up whenever I want instead of getting off the couch.
Yep.
That sounds great.
Yep, it's a fact. It's so lazy, but it's a factor. But
it does have some different modes. I like I said, I bought it myself and played a few of the different modes. I played a couple games online, and then I played a little bit of, it has Puyo Puyo 2 and then Puyo Puyo Fever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I don't know the main differences between the two, but if you want to elaborate on that a little, Randall?
Oh, I do. So Puyo Puyo 2 is your traditional Puyo Puyo. If you've ever played Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine or Kirby's Avalanche or any of the number of Puyo Puyo releases that have ended up here on the West, which is a lot less than have ended up in Japan or other territories like that. But we've had a few of them, and it's more your traditional Puyo Puyo where you're getting kind of like these two like I don't even know what to call Puyos, like little slimes or something.
Yeah, they're like little slime blobs.
Yeah. But there's two of them connected. There's four different color combinations, and kind of like Tetris or most traditional puzzlers, they come from the top down. And your object in Puyo Puyo is to get four of the same color together. But they don't have to be just straight up and down or horizontal. They can kind of go in any number of shapes as long as they're kind of connected in the block next to another block. That's not a very great description, but
I know they can like zig and zag around. It can go up, down, left, right, as long as they are all connected at the end of the day.
Right.
They just can't be diagonal.
Right. It cannot be
Correct,
diagonal. Has to be up, down, left, right connected in this kind of grid that you have to play in. But what that really encourages is for you to set up combinations where you don't necessarily want to just create a 4 immediately. You want to set it up where the color that you need for the fourth piece is right next to another set of 3, and you want to create a combo, a chain where once you've unleashed one with 4, one color drops that might be sitting on top of it, and that creates another 4, that creates another 4, where it's kind of creating a combination chain down the line, where if you're playing against somebody else that puts the garbage blocks or slimes on their side that they now have to deal with that are colorless, but keeps them from dropping things to create their own combinations. So that's kind of the Puyo Puyo 2 version, whereas Puyo Puyo Fever takes that same idea and expands on it, where now you kind of have this fever meter, this fever gauge, they call it, which is kind of like your super meter that you can build up by getting those 4s or combos over time. It also, instead of just being the 2 blob colors, you'll get ones that are much bigger, where sometimes you'll get 4 at once, or a combination of 2 and 2, where it'll be like 2 reds and 2 yellows together in like a yin-yang shape that's dropping down from the top. So you'll do that. It'll drop down. You'll get your fever gauge to go all the way to the top, and then you'll go into this crazy fever mode where it's more kind of like preset Puyo Puyo puzzles almost, where you're putting a piece in the right place that'll create the combination or the combo to go off to create 4x Puyo
like
Puyo.
A single, like a single screen clear, basically.
Basically,
like,
it's kind
put
of
the
setting
right
up a
puzzle
preset.
piece in the right spot. Yeah.
Which is pretty interesting. Kind of a different change up on that. And more, I think, the one that they're promoting in some of the more recent Puyo Puyo games is kind of the default. But besides that, that's kind of the nitty gritty of how Puyo Puyo works, which is kind of hard to describe in an audio format. But
yeah. No, but it's really similar to Tetris and Tetris Puyo Puyo or whatever that game's called. Like it's got the very similar presentation, a lot of the same characters to pick from, the same kind of 2D, hand drawn, characters, and they're just very similar in style.
It looks great too. I love the presentation of this game. It's very vibrant. You have 24 characters to choose from right from the start. You don't have to unlock any like you do in Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Yeah, and tons of options of like, what you want the Puyos to look like. You can make them look like different Sonic characters. You can make them look like chalk, like hand-drawn chalk outlines. You can make them look like retro Game Gear style. Yeah, like all across all the, eras and and some new ones as well. So it's definitely got some tons of options, tons of music. And it's just like a super upbeat, colorful puzzle game. So yeah, super fun.
The other aspect that I thought was really impressive that they didn't have to do is automatically saves your replays. And it's
cool.
Yeah, it's hidden in kind of sub option menus, but all of your replays are automatically saved from either, local co-op or like local versus or online. Regardless, they're all saved there for you to kind of see what you did, what you could have done differently next time. And it does this kind of annotation thing when you pause, where it shows almost in like a flowchart method. Like, here's where, you created a combo. Here's where you had a 4 red that cleared this part. Here's where blocks fell on you from your opponent. So it's pretty cool with like timestamps in that game. So I thought that was really
that sounds pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know if it sounds cool wasting up all my Switch micro SD card space, but
that's fair.
Than that, no, that's cool. I like the analytical aspect of that. I'd like to kind of look back at some of my games and have a feeling. So the first game I played, it was pretty competitive, but I ended up beating this person. And I was like, oh man, I might be good at this. Yeah. The first game I played online, that is.
Nice.
And then I
did not have
somebody else after and just waterfall of combos. Like I was like, oh, I'm doing okay. Like nothing happened. And then all of a sudden it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. I was like,
God.
what the hell is happening? And I blocked a couple of them, and it just kept raining.
Yeah, here comes the pain.
Yeah, I just got destroyed.
Which
So,
I don't know about your experience, but I thought online was pretty smooth.
yeah,
Pretty
smooth
good
and
experience
seamless.
that way.
I'm excited to play some with you, hopefully. And
Yeah.
I'd be curious, especially as long as it has the feature of like, if DJ doesn't own the game. So if it was like, if he was able to play him and I here online together and then also sync up with you, as long as it allows you to do that, I'm all in. Any 4-player puzzle battle game, I'm in.
Totally.
So easy, these are the type of games that even if you, and especially this game, not all these, brick falling puzzle, brick dropping, whatever you want to call these type of puzzle games.
Yeah.
They're not, they don't take that much, Tetris. It's just like, just fill the lines up and clear them. This game, it's like, just match the colors. You don't have to know any crazy items or any crazy, anything else. It's just match the colors and match 4.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
So I really like the simplicity, and you only need to know how to use a D-pad or a joystick. You don't even need to press a button.
Right.
I guess you got to rotate.
Just to rotate, yeah. Or
you really only need
drop.
one button. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really have a good time with these games, and I'm looking forward to playing some more, especially with online features.
It also has appropriately obnoxious characters with their own catchphrases, which is obviously very important for these type of competitive puzzlers.
I will say I wish there was a little more of that, like in terms of like when I was playing, I played like I think it was called endurance mode or something like that. It was like beat as many, you just keep facing off against characters until you lose.
Yeah.
But you keep going, like you don't reset as a new character comes up. Like your board stays the same.
Right. Yeah.
But there's no like character art on the side or anything like that. You just kind of hear their voice.
Oh, that's weird.
And maybe it is different in different modes, but that's how it was in the endurance mode. It just had like the background setting. And again, there's a ton of different backgrounds, ton of different whatever, but there wasn't a lot of stuff on the side to, keep you engaged, or if somebody was watching the game or something,
right. I know in the quick start modes for Puyo Puyo 2 and Fever, right on the main menu, it throws you into kind of just the versus computer mode where it shows that other character you're fighting against. But yeah, it sounds like endurance mode is different that way.
Yeah. Although I did think that mode was pretty cool. So.
Yeah. That's sweet. Yeah, definitely glad to own it.
Cool. Well, moving on from there, I know DJ picked up Cuphead on sale on the Switch this week, and I know you got back into this for the first time solo, correct?
Yeah, about a year ago, my roommate and I put a good amount of time in co-op, but yeah, this is my first time, going through without being able to rely on someone else to, carry me through.
I played a little bit with you guys.
I feel like some ways
well,
co-op would be hard, like maybe harder. I don't know. Can get so hectic in that game.
Yeah, I mean, because also you have like a window in which you can, revive your teammate.
Okay, yeah.
So that kind of will affect what you're doing. Might make you do some moves that you wouldn't normally have done if you were doing solo. But
right,
to state for anyone who is unfamiliar with this game, Cuphead is a game developed by Studio MDHR, and it's a run and gun game that is, most known for having its art style be like this hand-drawn 1930s Walt Disney style cartoons.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's also known for being pretty difficult. I mean, there are some side-scrolly run and gun level sections, but it is mainly just these boss battles. And they take maybe 2 to 3 minutes to beat, assuming
assuming success.
Right. Assuming success. But like you've got all these different, very differently themed bosses. Like you've got, this pirate and his ship, and you've got these frog brothers who box, and you've got like all these plant-based bosses.
They're really creative and unique, you know, and they'll morph into different forms and stuff like that.
They all have at least 3 forms, I believe, and you know, they're all hectic, you know, like you don't catch a break with many of them. So you do really have to go through a lot of times and really understand the attack patterns. Because I guess, admittedly, you know, not all the attacks are, you know, intuitively telegraphed. Like you have to see it happen and then be like, oh, okay.
Once you know what it is, then it's like, oh, that's the telegraph for that attack, but you might not see, you know, oh, he's taking a deep breath in. He's about to blow some missiles out in my face. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think it's got a good challenge. It's, you know, it's charming with its own, you know, theme. I find this game, you know, as most people find it, like, very enjoyable. It's, you know, highly praised, but there are some among us who...
Well, I've only played a little bit with you and Mikey, your roommate, and I didn't not like it, but I definitely, from what I had seen in the leading up to it and like the excitement, because the art style obviously caught my eye, and the animation, I like that old like Disney like ragtime, whatever you want to call it. It's got like a darker vibe. It's got more like the less Mickey Mouse and more the like Steamboat Willie kind of vibe, which is Mickey Mouse, I guess, but
old school Mickey.
You know, it's got that little bit of that darker, like almost like Looney Tunes vibe. Yeah. But I was expecting more from what I'd seen, like more of like a run and gun, Gunstar Heroes, Contra kind of game.
So there are some comparisons there for sure.
There definitely are, but when it turned out to be more of like, this is just a boss rush game and there's very little platforming. Again, I know DJ mentioned there's a couple of levels interspersed in there,
but they do incorporate some platforming in the boss fights too. It's not,
but not to the degree of like I was expecting, like more of like a Gunstar Heroes meets Super Meat Boy Celeste kind of game, where it turned out to just be it's all about the gunning and less about the running.
Right.
And I just found that, I don't know, I guess I just don't find boss rush type stuff super interesting, because it does boil down to just memorize these patterns, and there's less of a reactive nature to the gameplay.
Right.
So I found myself, and I do think that the as much as I love the art style, I think the bullets and everything, even though I know you need to make that stuff pop out to be visible, but especially your bullets that you're firing just really stand out too much from the art style. Like they're like that neon blue and that neon, like, if anything, that should be the enemy's projectiles and not your own projectiles. I don't know. I was really,
I mean, even the enemies at times do have that.
Well, they have those pink projectiles.
Those are the ones.
Parry.
Yeah.
And what does the parrying do again? It's been a while since I played.
So you have this meter at the bottom that you can build to unleash more powerful attacks, and the parry, you know, increases the rate at which that fills up.
And is that the only way?
Just normal shots will charge it, but like a parry will charge it a lot more.
Bigger chunks at a time. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, again, it wasn't like I was having a bad time. I'm not by no means trying to just shit on this game, but I just, for all the hype and for all the...
There is a lot of hype, but...
all the, and for all the, you know, for the hype that I had, you know, I was really excited about this game. And especially now that it's on Switch, you know, I was kind of forcefully dulled the hype for myself by saying, okay, well, I don't have an Xbox, so I'm just not going to be able to play this game. I know it's on Steam as well, but I have a Mac. I don't think it's available on Apple stuff. And even if it is, I don't really have it set up to really play games on here. So I just kind of wrote off, like, I guess I'll just play Cuphead at Mikey and DJ's every once in a while, but that's all I'm ever going to experience it. But even now that it's available, it's like, maybe if there's a good sale at some point, I might snag it, but it's not one that grabbed me, even after playing it for, you know, I didn't play a ton, but I played a good 4 or 5 different boss battles and didn't find myself compelled to revisit that game for whatever reason. But have you played this game at all, Randall?
Yeah, I bought it when I got my Xbox One last year, it was one of the first games. I'm like, all right, this is an exclusive at that point. And I'm like, I got to grab this game. I love the art style. The presentation of it just is amazing. And obviously what really sets it apart. And kind of like Kevin had been alluding to too, there's not a lot of run and gun games. So your natural things you compare it to are things like Gunstar Heroes. But yeah, it's a brick wall of difficulty. I only really made it through the first handful of levels, and by no means did I conquer those levels in a meaningful way. So I kind of fell off from that purpose and onto other things where like I'm like, oh, let me try this again later, and later really hasn't happened as much. So it's something I need to go back to. But yeah, it's very tough, and yeah, there's definitely some rote memorization in the kind of boss rush type of thing it's presenting at you most of the time.
Yeah, I guess there is a decent amount of memorization, but I feel like even if you memorize the attack patterns, it can still be so hectic and hard to avoid those.
Oh,
attacks.
definitely.
And to be fair, I am a sucker for difficult games.
Well, I am too, though. To it, not to the degree that you are. I don't think. Like, I'm not willing to punish myself. Like once I hit a point, I just say, okay, I'm not good enough. Where you're like, you'll just keep, you know what I mean? You will defeat. Yeah, you will conquer the game eventually, no matter what. I don't have that in me a lot of times. If the game is right, if it hooks me, I will put in the time. Like, I will, when I get sucked into like, I can't think of a good example. Like Goner, we were playing, we might talk about a little bit later. Like I have the 78th highest score on the leaderboard. Dang. And that's not insane. I don't think there's like a ton of people playing that game, but like I just got hooked into like I figured out how I can maximize this combo, and something about that I can get sucked into that. But for some reason the Cuphead stuff just didn't fully do it for me as much as I do want to play it. But I did want to ask, how does it hold up on the Switch port? Because I know you originally played it with Mikey on the Xbox. So how does it feel? I know I saw some videos originally when it was announced about the loading times, and I mean it was significant. It was some really long loading times, but yeah, I don't know if they've worked on that since it. You know, that was before it came out, just when they announced it.
I didn't notice any huge differences with regards to loading times. I remember when my roommate and I played on the Xbox, there were a decent amount of bugs we came across.
Oh, really?
Like some freezes.
And there was that one like co-op bug where like if you died on the one stage of the last boss or something.
Yeah, there was a really edge casey kind of bug we discovered where like if only the second player was alive at this particular point in this boss battle, then you weren't able to advance at all.
Boy.
But
that's a bummer.
I mean, I on this run only played solo, so for all I know, that is still a thing. I'm sure it's fixed by now.
Yeah.
But no, in terms of transition of the Switch, no issues.
Still looks good and everything. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's good to know. And really cool to see a game that, you know, is published by Microsoft also be published by Microsoft on the Switch.
That's pretty novel.
That's pretty cool to know that that's a possibility in the future. Again, like, you know, there's not a ton of stuff, but I mean stuff like, you know, Sea of Thieves, I know that's from Rare, but also published by Microsoft, right. And that's something that I at least had my eye on. You know, there's some things that I'd be interested in, so I'd be curious to see where that relationship goes with them in the future.
That is really cool
with Nintendo, because I know you're not going to see Mario on Xbox One, so it's kind of interesting how much. Yeah, but how much are they willing to? How much is Microsoft going to be willing? You know, that's an interesting dynamic, because if Nintendo's not willing to give on their end, but if Microsoft, but at the same time, I mean, Cuphead, I'm sure, is selling like crazy on the Switch.
Oh yeah,
so it almost seems like a no-brainer. Hey, everyone's buying games on the Switch, so why not release our hugely popular game also on the Switch?
Right. Yeah, I think Microsoft definitely switched up their whole methodology business-wise here in the wake of Xbox One not doing as well as they expected. They're like, let's open it up. Let's put stuff on PC. Let's put stuff on Switch. Why not?
Yeah, and they even start branding some of the PC stuff as Xbox,
right?
You know? So
make it a universal platform. Why not?
Smart move on their part, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to start going in the direction of competing with Stadia,
right,
and Google and stuff instead of competing with Sony and Nintendo.
Makes sense.
So that's interesting.
Yeah,
but yeah. Anything else to add about that one, DJ? About Cuphead?
I mean, I think I committed 2 days to it,
and you beat it already, right?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Damn it!
I mean, to be fair, I'd played it before, so.
But so what, man?
That's
it is not easy. And are you just playing on standard difficulty? Did you play on hard?
So I was about to say, I might be tempted to go back. I mean,
on hard, or
on
you were
hard,
playing on standard?
Oh my gosh.
I was playing on standard. You have to unlock the hard by doing standard first.
Is it by level, or do you have to actually beat the game and then unlock hard mode?
Well, I didn't try to replay any levels, so I don't know if Expert became available once I'd beaten them or not. So I cannot comment. But, you know, even I could still see myself going back on the normal modes, because when you beat a level, you know, you are given a grade, and it's based on like how fast it took, how much health you had, how many parries you did, and there's one based on your super meter charging. And based on all that, you get a letter grade. And, you know, some of them I did so well where, like, you know, once you beat a level, you get like a red flagpole,
right,
that shows up in the overworld. But if you do well enough, you get a gold flagpole. So it's almost a little like, you know, Super Mario 3D World-esque.
Yep. Yeah, get the top of the pole.
Yeah. So like little aspects like that make me want to be like, okay, like I can do better. So I'd be down to go back and, you know, retry some of those levels on normal to get a better score, or try my luck on expert, you know, which, you know, I did not complete co-op, so this would be a first.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
But I could see myself going back, like, you know, during those 2 days, you know, when I'd like take a break between sessions, I'd be really excited to go back and keep hammering away. So,
are there leaderboards and stuff?
No, or at least maybe I should.
I mean, who cares? I don't care.
Yeah.
But like, is it? I was just curious.
It's not like when you beat a level, it's just like, oh,
here's your ranking.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's like, oh, you actually beat a level. Congratulations.
Yeah. It's more just like, here's your C. Here's your C minus, you asshole. Keep playing.
Pretty much.
Cool. Well,
it's so
I guess
pretty,
what's that?
It's so pretty. The presentation's amazing.
It looks great.
Amazing.
And they have that. It has that weird, like, just like that menacing. There's some kind of weird menacing vibe that game has, and the soundtrack's fantastic. Not necessarily menacing on the soundtrack vibe. It just has that's jazzy, ragtime kind of vibe.
Yeah,
it's really cool. And they have a really great, I'm sure it's not available anymore, but a really great, Mikey has it, that vinyl set.
Yeah,
it's like 4 or 5 vinyls and like a book. It's really nicely made. And just clearly, just like, this game is like, I hate to use this expression because it's so overused, but just a labor of love. I mean, it's like, everyone who worked on this game worked their ass off and made sure that every element of it was, you know, all the details are, you know, like at least on the animation and music end.
Yeah,
it's just fantastic.
They're both top notch.
It's a work of art.
Totally.
You know, it would be just as entertaining to, maybe not for hours on end, but just to watch someone play this game for an hour or so, just to see all the visuals. I mean, it's really striking.
Yep.
You know, you can't verbally, it's hard to put it into words how great it looks if you haven't seen it, which I'm sure you have.
Yeah. See, you love this game.
Get it. I love how it looks.
I'm glad I own it. I will try to go back to it to smash my head against the wall again.
I'll play with DJ one of these days and give it a revisit.
Yeah.
But But I guess moving on from there, real quick, so we don't go right back into a puzzle game for on your end, Randall. I'm going to talk for a quick second about a game called Bad North.
Yeah,
which is a pretty. I struggle to call it a bite-sized real-time strategy game. Like, it's another roguelike. Surprise from me. But this is like a true roguelike. Like every time you play, there's no persistent upgrades. And every time you play, you start out with 2 commanders that you can then every time you each island will have a set of houses on it that are worth either 1, 2, or 3 coins each, or like little gold. They're gold coins. I don't know what kind of currency it is, but gold coins that you can then use to spend. You start out with just like a regular unit that you can then either upgrade to be archers or like an infantry unit, which is like sword and shield as opposed to just a sword.
Ooh.
Or like a pike, like a long like spear, and then you can upgrade those units, or you can go to items or islands. You're traveling along basically from left to right on the map. You're going left to right on these islands each turn, and you're selecting the commanders you want to send on the trip, and you're basically leveling them up. But if anybody dies along the way, you lose them, and any upgrades you've spent on them, any money they had with them, anything. And there's no, like I said, there's no persistent upgrades to like, this unit, the pikes will be stronger going forward from now on. You know, there's none of that.
Okay.
It's all just, you're starting from scratch every time. Which I really like. I have grown to, as I've dove in deeper into some of these roguelikes, I think that's maybe something that would have turned me off originally.
Right.
But I really like the just like every game is just, you know, it is a little bit of tedious, but the first island or 2 that you fend off or that you kind of, so it's just like there's one little island and it's kind of like a little diorama, almost like a little snow globe. And there's just like maybe, 3, 4 at the most 5 houses on the island on the first levels or 2, the first few levels, there's only going to be 1 or 2 houses. And you can rotate around that island, and these Vikings will come in and attack. And there's a few different types of enemies. There will be archers at times that they'll shoot as they're coming in on boats. Like I said, they're islands, so they're coming in off the water. And then you have the option you can flee the island if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed on the enemy's boats. You can steal one of their boats and leave. You can replenish your troops. Like each troop has 9. If you have an archer unit, there's 9 archers in that unit. And then if, they'll get killed off one at a time. And if you're like, I only have 2 left, I can go send them back to the houses and replenish them. And then they'll be back to full strength, or every time you start a new level, they'll be back at full strength. But again, if you lose any unit, if they are fully depleted, they're gone for good. And any upgrades that you've spent on them, they take them with them.
Wow.
So it gets, the other day I was looking for a game to play on a rainy day, and this game just fit the bill perfectly. It has like a really like soft pastel kind of vibe. It does get a little more gray and bleak at times, really minimalist presentation across the board. Like soundtrack's almost non-existent. There's just kind of like a pulse, horn kind of sound. Right before the level, there's like a small little kind of like Scottish bagpipe kind of vibe, or a little Nordic ditty. But other than that, there's not too much going on, and it's just got a real clean. I've had my eye on this game since it came out, and it was on sale. Nothing super cheap, but I was just like, I've been eyeing this game, and there is a demo on the eShop, and I'm sure if it's available on other platforms as well.
Nice.
So I'm sure there's demos available elsewhere. But I played it, and to be honest, I wasn't super sucked into the demo because you kind of just play those opening couple of islands and kind of get the feel of what the game is, but those opening couple islands are always just to kind of set the stage. And okay, do I want to upgrade do I want to have more archers this time around, or do I want to spend my money on upgrading abilities? When you get the archers, you can upgrade like an ability that will let you like shoot a volley of arrows. And as you swap between units, you can have up to 4 different units. And as you go from island to island, like I said, there's some of the islands will have a little question mark. You can pick up an item, and that'll be like you can throw a bomb out, or you get like a hammer that can kind of clear enemies away. Or you get I can't think of any other abilities, or you can get different like upgrades to the class. You make them archers, and then you can upgrade the archer class from veteran to elite to whatever the different classes are. You can upgrade them 3 different tiers. So there's quite a few different options. It stays The gameplay stays pretty straightforward, but it starts off, you're like, oh, this is a nice, chill, low-key game, and it starts getting hardcore pretty quick. You get overwhelmed real quick. But really enjoying this game. I'm probably going to wait a little bit, to be honest, to play a little bit more. I actually just randomly decided to dive into this game, and maybe this is why it was on sale, but they just announced during E3 or right before it that there was going to be a new Jotun update, or Jotun, however you pronounce that. But there's a new update coming out that's going to add some new items, some new gameplay elements and whatnot. And I believe it's in beta on the PC right now, so you're welcome to try it out on PC and check out what's going on, and maybe even give some feedback to the developers. But I really have enjoyed what I've played so far, and I'm excited to maybe put it on the back burner and wait to see until this update comes out for the Switch, and dive back into this game. But again, really, like, I struggle to call it bite size, like I said at the beginning, because each campaign I've gotten about, the furthest I've gotten is 60%. Like, after you die, it tells you how far you've gotten.
Yeah.
And that was like about an hour and 20 minutes of a run. So, it's probably about 2 hours to get through a run. So I'd struggle to call it bite size, but each island itself, you can kind of chart your course through the map, and like there's like a wave, there's like bones and skeletons and stuff in the wave coming from the left. So you kind of have to keep progressing to the right as you pick which island you want to go to. And you can see on the overworld map, like, okay, there's going to be 3 houses on this island. There's only going to be 1 over here, or there's going to be a flag on this island. So I'm going to be able to pick up a new commander on that island and add them to my squad. So even though I can only take 4 max to any given island, I can have a couple people in the backup reserves, Do
the commanders have different attributes? Like, as far as different?
Not starting off, but again, you level them up and you have to kind of pick a class for them.
Okay.
And again, once you get further, they will sometimes, like when you get to their home island, they'll either start with some gold already, or they might even be archers already, instead of just starting as like the base unit. They might already be archers, or have the infantry, like sword and shield kind of deal. And then you don't have the option to change that. You can just keep upgrading that path. But it is nice to know, like, okay, these guys are already on my level, But you kind of have to make the choice of, like, do I want to go explore these islands and waste a couple turns trying to get that item over here? Or do I want to go for that commander? Or do I need to just keep progressing? Or, do I have to get ahead of this wave that's coming behind me? I haven't had that happen where I've lost the game because of that wave coming from the left.
Right.
But my assumption is that if I'm on an island that then gets consumed by that wave, it's game over.
Right.
But yeah, I've been just having a really good time with the minute. It's a perfect game to just like throw on a podcast or throw on some chill music in the background and just kind of waste a few hours. I played a little bit when DJ got here just to kind of show him what the game was all about, and I know he was saying like, I can maybe get into this. So
at this point, like, I'm kind of regretting not getting it when it was on sale.
And for what it's worth, it was only like $3 off. It wasn't any kind of huge sale.
All right, money bags.
$4.
Yeah. But I really like real-time strategy games, and these days I don't play a ton of them, so
aren't that many of them.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, not to interrupt, but it works great on a controller. You use the right stick to rotate around the island, which is relatively small. You can zoom in and zoom out with the right and left triggers. And then you can rotate between units with the right and left bumpers. And then you use the D-pad to swap between the different abilities. And when you're swapping between units or picking abilities and whatnot, it doesn't freeze the game, but it goes into super, super slow motion. And it's just implemented really well. It feels really natural playing that game with a controller. It's perfect. Like, I don't feel like I wish I had a mouse and keyboard at any point in time. And granted, I've never really played games that way, so I never really feel that way. But I definitely have avoided strategy games in the past just because I'm like, I can clearly tell this game would work way better if I could drag and drop and do things like that a mouse, that a controller just can't do.
Right. Select multiple characters at once with drag a box over the units with your cursor. Yeah. You don't have that option here. And yeah, that's awesome that it sounds like it works with a controller.
Yeah. And because this game pairs like each each commander is paired to like a unit of 9 people, you are kind of commanding troops at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're sending a group of people regardless. And I really like that. And again, it's all procedurally generated. The characters, names and whatever. It's all randomly generated, but it's a really minimal aesthetic. I do wish there was maybe a little more variety, and that's maybe one of the reasons I want to wait for this update. In the visuals, especially like the islands, that you start to get some, like later in the game, you get some redder tones and some bluer and some bleaker tones, or it's raining, or it's foggy, or you get some slightly different vibes, but it definitely throughout feels really similar in aesthetic across the board, music and, or audio and visual wise.
Right.
So that's one small gripe, but I'm maybe hoping that they add a little more to that with the update coming up soon.
Although with the, sameness of audio, that makes it even better for a podcast option.
Yeah.
Perfect. Or true. Putting on the music, like find the vibe that you want, like whatever vibe you're getting from the game, find some music that fits the vibe and just throw that on in the background. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's definitely got some cool sound effects. And you can zoom in, zoom out. I wish there was maybe, as much as I love the minimalist approach and the minimalist presentation, I do wish there was maybe a little more, like I said, I think there's 9 individuals like per unit. And I wish there was maybe some kind of like tally in the corner so you could see, because it's really hard to tell, especially when battles are going on.
Oh.
Like, how many people are left in that squad? Should I send them to, replenish their units, or should I flee, or should I hang back and just kind of be a secondary? It's hard to tell sometimes. So I wish there was maybe a little more of that, or a little more options to tell, or a little more UI, a little more interface to tell you what's going on. But apart from that, I'm really enjoying this game a lot.
That's cool. Not a lot of strategy options, like we were saying. So yeah, to get another one, especially on a platform that can go handheld, that seems like that could be a pretty good fit that way.
Yeah, especially with the bite size. One thing I will say, it's only happened a couple of times, but loading a saved game can take forever. I genuinely thought my Switch froze the other day.
No.
It took a good 5+ minutes to load my saved game. And I was just kind of doing some other things, and I just kind of was like, I think it's frozen. I'll get to it in a sec after I'm done with writing down these notes or making dinner or whatever the hell I was doing. And once I got back to my Switch, I was like, the game booted up. Okay, I guess I'll just keep playing, but but I don't know how that happened. So it was a little long on booting up a saved game. But as far as starting up a new game, I haven't had any issues in that regard. And I have had times that I've loaded a game that did not take that long. So maybe it was just some kind of fluke, and nothing to. I wouldn't persuade you from getting this game because of that.
Right.
So.
And with another patch upcoming, that's probably something on their radar.
Yeah, and again, that patch is available now, from what I understand, on PC and potentially Mac if the game's available there. And then otherwise, it should be available later this summer or later this year at the very least, everywhere else. So, and that should be a free update.
Nice.
Gonna keep my eye out for any sales.
Yeah,
totally.
I'll keep you
Same
posted.
here.
Yeah, I'll keep you guys posted. But Randall, why don't you talk a little bit more about some more puzzle games?
More competitive
lay it
puzzle
on us.
games.
Competitive. That's a good distinguisher, because sometimes, like, you think puzzle game, at least for me, I think like, I just want to relax and play a puzzle game.
Yeah,
but
these are not those.
It's like, hey, I want to fucking stick it to somebody and play a puzzle game.
Let me drop a bunch of garbage on somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is kind of, again, a follow-up from a previous conversation we had where I think it was last episode I was talking about Crystal Crisis and obviously the direct comparison to Puzzle Fighter. So it just timed out well where Xbox One, so Microsoft's done a great job with focusing on backwards compatibility, and during E3 they announced a whole slew of like, okay, these are the final games for Xbox One that'll be backwards compatible, and amongst those games was Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix, which is that's the whole title, and that's a game that I actually bought digitally on Xbox 360 back in the day. So that game actually came out in 2007, believe it or not, that version of it. And just this month, they made that available again, kind of free of charge if you've already bought it. If not, I would recommend that you buy it because it's fantastic.
I can second that.
Just like getting back into it, I'm like, oh, this is like riding a bike again. I won't try to explain too much of the mechanics because, once again, that's pretty clunky procedure in an audio only format to explain how a puzzle game works. But
well, it's got a little bit of that Puyo Puyo vibe in the sense of like it doesn't have to be a perfect row or a perfect square. Like it's just connect them as long as they're touching. And you're making combos. Just connect them.
And if anything, it's a little bit more like forgiving, I think, in this versus almost Puyo Puyo, where as long as you kind of have a connected chain of blocks, that's what you're looking for, where like you can see that you've got this big snaking yellow chain of blocks and you're just waiting for what do they call them? They're like power gems or crash gems. That's what they call them in Puzzle Fighter.
They look like diamonds, basically.
Yeah, well, in this one, they're like these orbs. They're like these kind of flared out orbs that have the corresponding color that you're looking for. So in this case, it'd be like a yellow orb. That's, one of the two pieces that you have that's coming down next. And connect that yellow orb to that yellow chain of blocks, and it sends off this huge explosion that's going to put all kinds of garbage onto your opponent. Which aren't
there? Sorry to interrupt.
No,
aren't there diamonds though that correspond to just any color, no matter what?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, because it's been a while since I played this, but I had this on my PS3, and quite frankly, wish that my PlayStation 4 had that backwards compatibility option, because my PS3 overheats every time I plug it in. So it would be great if I already bought this game, and I had a great time every time I used to play it. So
I know it.
I would love to boot it up again, but unfortunately don't have the means to play it at the moment. But
get you an Xbox One.
And I have to buy the game again. So
right,
but I seem to remember there being like a diamond that no matter what, like if you dropped down the diamond on like a yellow gem, it would blow up every yellow gem on the screen.
Every yellow gem in that circumstance would essentially like blow up and disappear, and then it would cause a cascading effect where all the remaining colors would kind of fill in, more than likely create bigger like blocky areas for you to create better combos with the remaining colors, which then can get it's a really cool mechanic. In they call it Puzzle Fighter because they've basically made a fighting game out of a puzzle game, which is a lot of fun. So you get all this garbage on you, and you're close to the top, and then you'll get something like that diamond that'll totally change it'll swing the battle like crazy.
Huge, It almost allows you to get like in Puyo Puyo, like we were talking about, like you have to set up those combos.
Right.
Like that diamond will let you kind of get an not accidental combo, you kind of have to set yourself up a little bit, but if you clear, all of a sudden all the greens are gone, and then like, oh shit, now I've all the reds are cleared, and all the, it just everything kind of falls into place because it eliminates things in a kind of randomized fashion as opposed to just clearing the blocks that you personally clear yourself,
Yes. Which sounds like it's random and there's no skill involved, but there definitely is still skill involved where you're placing those gems when you get the opportunity, and kind of where you're still building out your own combos, and even where you're putting some of those crash gems where you're like, okay, I could like put this blue crash gem on top of these couple of blues over here to send a couple of, garbage pieces over to my opponent. But really what I want to do is kind of nest that within a whole bunch of other things so that when we have that cascading effect from a diamond or from another crash gem of a different color, it'll set off this chain reaction where then it's like ×1 ×2, and it's sending a ton of, garbage over to your opponent, and it might knock them out at that point. So there's definitely some underlying strategy as you get to play it. And just in general, this game is just, Tina and I, my wife, were playing this, and it was just like, all right, one more round, always. Like it's one of those games. It's so addictive. It's so like immediately playable, but then there's those layers of depth. There's all these characters that speak in Japanese and like have these awesome catchphrases that you don't know exactly what they're saying, but it's just like fun that when they scream it. Like
that's all you need to say. That's
exactly.
all you need to say.
Yeah.
As long as it has some of that Puzzle Bobble vibe
Yes.
or whatever. What are those games called? I know that's not the name. Puzzle Bobble. What are they called? Puzzle
Bust a Move.
Bust a Move. Aren't they called something else somewhere else?
Puzzle Bobble. Yep.
Okay, I was like, I'm not crazy, am I?
Nope.
But yeah, like just the Bob the Storm.
Oh yeah,
and all the crazy, all the crazy shit talking.
Oh yeah,
that makes no sense.
Same exact energy here. Totally same energy. But almost even better, you can play as a lot of Street Fighter characters as your avatars. So you'll get like Ken, Ryu, Chun-Li, and then some of the other like Darkstalkers characters from like other, like some of other Capcom series like Darkstalkers and some of the other fighting game series. They'll pull in some different characters. There's 8 main characters you can choose from in kind of the traditional like fighting game character screen, plus there's secret characters like Akuma, who I'm always partial to in these type of games. So
yeah,
the soundtrack's great. What else? The only thing
the soundtrack really has that like arcadey.
It does.
Like when I remember playing on the PS3 at my old place, but like just like it, I just felt like I was in an arcade.
Totally.
It just has that like again like all those character barks and just like the sound effects of breaking bricks and stuff. It just that like cacophonous arcade vibe.
It's funny you say that too, because that's actually where it started. It started in the arcade. It was originally released in like 96 on arcade, and then came to like Saturn and PlayStation, which I also own the Saturn version.
Of Puzzle Fighter 2 or of the original?
Of Super Puzzle Fighter 2. Yeah.
Was there even a Puzzle Fighter regular?
That's a great question.
I know they're really bad about, like, Capcom's really bad about doing all those sequelize and Turbo HD Remix 3, you know?
Yeah.
Super Street Fighter 2 HD Remix.
I don't know. That's, I've never had a reason to look because Super Puzzle Fighter 2 is such a perfect game.
Yeah. That's all I've ever cared about.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a really fun game, really competitive. Does it have online at all on the Xbox?
I don't think so.
Man, because I know a lot of these don't have that, and that's not a total. I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker.
Yeah,
but it's definitely like for Puyo Puyo, for example, like for $5 for me, I was probably gonna get it anyways. But knowing that you had already grabbed it was just like, man, even if Randy and I play this one time together, that's probably worth $5.
I'm a liar. It has online play, or at least it did when it was released.
Oh,
okay. 360. I've just never bothered to do it, and it also supports 4-player.
And hopefully that's still, there's no guarantee that's still supported on Xbox One, but if it still is, that's really awesome.
Yep. The only gripe I have about the Xbox One / Xbox 360 version is the sprites kind of look like shit. They kind of look like there's some filter overlay on them where it looks kind of like muddy almost.
Yeah, I've heard that about Microsoft platforms.
Oh, he's dropping shade. Oh, here we go. Oh my God. I you know what? I enjoy my Xbox One. Thank you very much.
No, I love the backwards compatibility support. I think they're really great for that. And like I mentioned before, I wish so bad that my PlayStation 4 had backwards compatibility support.
Oh yeah.
Even just to the PlayStation 3, let alone to the PlayStation 2, which it seems like Xbox One, again, not every game, but I mean they're going all the way back into the original Xbox library, and that's really awesome. That's something that no one else does.
Totally.
No one else seems to think is important. Or if they think it's important, they think it's important enough to charge you again for the games and say, let's get the virtual console going. It's like, I own these games how many times over on Game Boys and whatever systems they're out on. I've bought them so many times. So that's really awesome that they continue to support that. So I feel bad that I'm taking some digs here because even though I'm not a big Xbox guy and don't own their current generation console, I do appreciate the fact that they support their ongoing fan base
Yeah. There's got to be like 10 to 15 of those like Xbox 360 games that I had bought literally 10 plus years ago that are now available for me to download again for free just because of this backwards compatibility. It's nuts.
I've considered getting an Xbox One just knowing the fact that like I probably have like 15 or 20 games that I could just download automatically just because I had them on my 360.
Yep, they're still there. If they're tied to your account, they're still there.
Even though I'll end up rebuying them on the Switch anyways.
Right.
Like an asshole. So
you and me both.
Yeah. But anyways, did you have anything more to add on that one, Randall?
Not a ton more. Just that like this version, the remix version, they kind of rebalanced in the what they call the X dash mode, which is kind of the main mode they kind of default you to, where it's just kind of rebalancing of like this character kind of has this combination of gems that they'll drop on an opponent versus, you know, before maybe it was a little unbalanced where one character was a little too strong. Although I never really felt that in the Saturn version either, but I'm sure higher level players notice stuff like that. But yeah, it's just super recommended. Like my highest recommendation for this game. I love. It's probably this and Bust a Move 4 are probably my favorite two competitive puzzlers. So it's on that level.
That's definitely saying something, because you and I have definitely had some, in terms of the one more game, puzzle game goes. Yeah, me and you have played some serious Bust a Move 4.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I'll thrash you again if you want to set something up.
Don't make me bust out Bram on your ass. Bob the Storm.
Can't stand
what the fuck are you doing?
Anytime.
But no, that's a serious endorsement, because again, that a lot of puzzle games don't have that frantic nature to them, and even if they do, it's because you feel overwhelmed.
Yep. And
Puzzle Fighter starts to feel frantic, not because you're overwhelmed, but just because of the nature of the way they kind of present the action.
Oh yeah. It's very frenetic. It's very like fluid, just kind of back and forth. Like, I'm about to die. Oh no, now you're about to die.
Oh wait, I'm back in the match. Yeah, you can get back in it even when you feel like you're on death's door.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely something that makes these competitive games like this interesting. You know, well, the one-on-one, like Nidhogg we talked about a few weeks ago. It's like even when DJ's on the last screen, it's like I still have a chance. I can still come back. You know, if DJ makes just two small mistakes, I can make some serious, recover some serious ground.
Yep. That's why it's called Puzzle Fighter. It's like, a very apt name.
Yeah. So hopefully that one will see another life, or maybe it's another incarnation. I know we got Crystal Crisis recently.
Yeah.
And from the sound of it, it seems like, how are you feeling between the two? Are you feeling like, not to shit talk Crystal Crisis or either game, but are you feeling like Crystal Crisis carries the torch, or are you feeling like Puzzle Fighter is still the way to go?
Oh boy. Yeah. I think if the problem is Puzzle Fighter is not like readily available on anything on modern platforms besides Xbox
One. You can buy it on Xbox. Yeah. I mean, that's readily available. A lot of people have Xboxes.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the only way you're going to get it for modern platforms, that's too bad. Like if
it's on Steam too, as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I mean, if they were to drop like, we're putting Puzzle Fighter on Switch, I would absolutely buy it there as well. But
yeah, I'd buy it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it's one of those games where like I just immediately fell back in love again, and it was like riding a bike to play this game. And I hadn't picked it up in, I don't know, probably a couple of years. So like it's just feels to me immediately feels better as far as polish and presentation and how the game flows than Crystal Crisis. But I'm still definitely going to hold out hope that Crystal Crisis can improve in some of those areas I talked about before. And again, still glad I own that game as the only modern spiritual successor to Puzzle Fighter.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to see somebody carrying the torch.
Yes, somebody else realizes, oh shoot, this game was amazing, and just kind of dropped off the edge there, like 10 years ago.
Yeah, if not more.
Yeah.
We all got to play a lot of these puzzle games together sometime, because
DJ's not a big puzzle guy. Not puzzle. You like puzzles, but not like these competitive brick falling puzzle games.
I just haven't played many of them, to be honest. Like, it just wasn't what we had growing up. So I've missed out on this entire genre.
Dude, I like for going back to Bust a Move 4, like I would go over to Randy's house and we would play till like, I'm not kidding, like 7 in the morning. We would just drink a bunch of Balls energy drinks and just pound them and just Bob the Storm.
Yep. All right, best
Bob
of 3. Yep.
What the fuck are you doing? and that's it. You just get like, there's just this like, there were times where like, there were definitely nights where I was winning like 80%, 75, 80% of the matches.
Yep.
And then vice versa. Definitely nights where you were winning 75, 80% of the matches.
Yep.
But yet, it's like when you're losing, you're almost more compelled to be like, let's go.
Yep.
One more, Randy. Get the fuck out of here.
I'm already like that.
Yeah. I think this is like up your alley. Like, especially like, I mean, if we got like a little 4-player action going and really sunk our teeth into one of these games, like, I really think we could
rule the world.
And there's
I don't know about rule the world, but
awesome, obnoxious characters in both of these games that just make it just so special. I love them.
Yeah, well, speaking of, I wouldn't go quite obnoxious, but speaking of, this isn't quite a puzzle game in the same sense, but it's more of like an action puzzler, akin to stuff like Breakout, if you're familiar with that, or Arkanoid, I think, is that the name of that game?
Yep.
Arkanoid?
Yep.
But yeah, we're gonna next week talk about Breakfastist Battle. Hashtag Breakfastist Battle.
Thank you.
DJ and I have put a decent amount of time into this game, and I think Randall picked it up a while back, but haven't put too much time, right?
Nope, 0 time.
0 time. All right, cool. So looking forward to revisiting that game. It's been a little while, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts on checking it out fresh, Randall.
More puzzlers.
All right. Well, anyways, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This has been Pursuing Pixels, and next week, we'll talk about some hashtag Breakfastist Battle. And until then, we'll catch you next time.
Have a good night.
Take care. All right, 1:43 and 35 seconds. I'll just try to remember.
You're going to remember.
Yeah, I'm like saying it like I'm going to just automatically be able to listen to that one clip of me saying. Oh, man.
I know.
Thanks, DJ. Well, right 1:44 at this point.